Okay, hello everyone. Let's get started. So in previous video we talked about linear layout, the most basic layout available in Android, and also we started talking about TextView, so the component which allows us to present text to a user. Right, so if you haven't watched this video yet or you forgot what that was about, so the link to that video should appear on the top right corner right now. But we continue, and today we'll discuss another very important component. So we talk about button. So how we create a button, how we can manipulate it, what are the most important properties of it, and how we can assign some actions to this button. So once a user clicks this button, so what happens? Okay, so let's start by defining a button. As usual, we can do that in two ways. So first from palette, here in buttons, we have a button and we just drag it somewhere. Okay, so that's first option, how we can do that. Another is to define it through XML. So I prefer using XML, but that's just a matter of taste. If you like, you can just use drag and drop. Okay, let's do the button wrap. Okay, um, wrap content. Okay, so for our linear layout, we still need to define orientation. So let it be vertical. So the components inside linear layout are stored vertically, not horizontally. So we did this last time, but for some reasons this property was dropped from my project. Okay, wrap content. So as you see, we have a button. So to define what is written on this button, we use a property text. Let's do it like okay. Fine. We can define a text style, whether it's italic, bold, or normal. Let it be bold. Okay. So now let's start our application on a virtual device and see how it looks like. Okay. So let's see how it looks like, and then we'll see how we can actually manipulate this button through the code. Okay. Okay, we can see hello world and our button. So it's clickable. As you can see, it's clickable. I can click on it, but nothing happens because we haven't defined anything yet. So the property enabled actually specifies whether this button is enabled or not, whether we can click it or not. So by default, it's true, as you see. And if I set enabled to false, let's rebuild, reinstall, and now you can see I'm not actually able to click it. Yeah, so the button is not clickable. Okay, so by default it's true. So if you want this button to be enabled, you can specify this property and set it to true, or you can just do nothing because by default enabled is set to true. Okay, that's fine. And now let's see how we can assign some actions to this button, right? So there is a special property called onClick, right? Which actually specifies a method which will be called once we click on this button. Yeah? Let's call it example click method, right? Okay, so as you can see, of course, this method doesn't exist because we have just created it. So we need to create it and define in my main activity. Okay. So as it was written here, so it should have the following signature, right? Let's just copy it, or we can actually, yeah, let's copy and paste it. So please pay attention. so everything to work correctly. So each so first we should import view. Okay, so the method, so to be recognized by this property onClick, it should be public. It should return void. Of course, name should be the same as we specified here, and as a parameter, it should be view, right? And button is a subclass of view. So view is a parent class or superclass for button, right? So if the method has such signature, everything will work fine. Okay. So now this method is recognized by the button. Let's define something. Okay. Let's do like this. So once we press this button, we change the text from the text view from hello world to something else. Let's say button pressed, right? To be able to do that, we still need to append some properties both to button and text view components. So first, to be able to manipulate any component from the code, we should specify a property ID. So that's basically ID of this particular component, so we can reference to this component by this ID from our code. Let's call it just as simple as TextView, and this one as a button. Okay, so ID, it should start with add plus ID and the actual ID. Okay, let's do it. Okay, yeah, so this ID is needed so we can reference to our components from the code. Okay, so let's first get links to our components. Yeah, so basically let's get references to our components. To be able to do that, we use a method find view by ID. Okay, and here we use R, which is basically a class which contains references to all components we use. So we should call ID method, and ID we specified here. Yeah, for TextView, that was TextView. Okay, so now in this variable TextView, we have a reference or link to our TextView. So let's do the same for our button. Let it be button and find view by ID R ID button. Okay. Okay. So once button is pressed, so what we want to do? We want to change the text of the text view. Okay. So we should call a method set text. Set text from our text view, and let's it hardcode. Let's say it's button pressed, right? And after that, let's set enabled to false. Yeah, so let's disable our button. Okay, so by default it's enabled, and once we change the press the button once, we change the text of text view from hello world to button pressed, and then we disable our button. Okay, just to illustrate how that works. Okay, hello world. Okay, we can press it. So as you see, the text has changed from hello world to button pressed, and then we disabled our button, so we can't press this button anymore. Okay, so that was a basic overview of button component and how we can actually interact with our button and also any other component using code. Okay, so hopefully you like this video. Next time we'll talk about edit text, so the primary component for allowing user to enter a text. Okay, Thanks to all for watching. So if you like this video, press like. Don't forget to subscribe to this video, enable notifications so you don't miss any upcoming videos. But that's all for today. Thanks to all for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.